Hello. So yes, Creative Assembly. Anyone here played Total War? Some of you disappoint me. Anyone here played Alien Isolation yet? Not quite as many of you, yes! Anyone played Alien Isolation with an Oculus Rift DK2 yet? Wow. How many pairs of trousers have you got through? Yes, I'm playing this at lunchtimes at the moment, and I'm finding it tough going. Right. Leveling up. CA since Total War. So yes, Guy Davidson, but Guy to everybody. I'm a coding manager. The role was created for me, really, because they needed somewhere for me to go. Sort of upwards, I hope. And so I'm responsible for, primarily, my coding tasks are the low-level libraries of the Total War engine. But also I do some recruitment and development of programmers and just making the place a nicer place to be, really. So I joined CA in 1999 after a couple of years at Codemasters. When I was at Codemasters, I worked on Prince Naseem Boxing. Who's played Prince Naseem Boxing? No! Bloody hell, we sold 2,400 copies of that worldwide. I've never met anyone who's played Prince Naseem Boxing. Wow. It wasn't my finest hour, certainly, but it was my first game. And it was my first game. I think that's probably all there is to say about it. So the company, Creative Assembly, was about 12 years old when I joined back in 1999. Sports titles were the bread and butter. So we'd done Australian rules football. No one? Okay. Did a cricket game. We did a rugby game, actually. And that's what I was working on. We had a small team downstairs. They finished Shogun Total War in June 2000. The office was quite large. It used to be owned by Sun Alliance, I think, or someone like that. And there were only about 30 of us, but the office was built for about 50. And we were all upstairs. Downstairs was kind of a wasteland of bits of kit, some old desks. And we used to play football down there at lunchtimes, indoors. Indoor football, great perk of the job. Rugby World Cup was finished in 2000 on the PC, and 2001 on PlayStation 2. It was quite well received, actually, even though I say so myself. It was actually recommended in 2003, when the next Rugby World Cup came along, over the licensed title, about which I'm quite pleased, because it was quite primitive tech. It didn't look great. It didn't, there weren't that many of us who actually worked on it, but it played really, really well. Gameplay always wins out. Come on. Flushed with the success of Shogun, the downstairs team moved to another period, the medieval era. Anyone played medieval? I'm going to be asking you this all the way through, so if you could just remember all the Total War games and all the non-Total War games that were released, and make little notes. You'll know when to stick your hands up when I get to you, okay? So, medieval. Who's played medieval? You sweetie. This is great. Thank you. Yes, the team moved to the medieval era. Meanwhile, whilst that was being made and released, we started on Rome. Now, what we did was we started on a fresh code base, because the first code base, the original Shogun, was a bit of a vanity project. And people just came in and they did their thing, put their bits of systems in and made it all together and made it look nice. And we can have 3D terrain in it, or we can have troops as sprites in the distance coming over the terrain and being hidden behind bits. And it was all a bit, whoa! And we thought, you know what, we need to actually get hold of this code base. And there was no way we could see of getting from where the code base was to where we wanted it to be. And so we just put it to one side, and another team, which I was in, started a fresh code base for Rome. And the plan was that we would evolve one code base and greenfield another one. And that was what we do. We just, as games were being developed, we'd develop the code base and then let it reach the mangly, gnarly, horrific state that code bases get into after, about 1 million lines and 200 years of overtime. And then once that had served its purpose, we'd start with another code base. So this was the first idea. This was the first time that we did this. And there was a third team, actually, working on console ideas, led by the inestimable Clive Grattan, of whom more shortly. It was, however, time to go. For me, I got married in 2000, and I had a son in 2001, and I was becoming an upstanding member of the community, and I needed to get a proper job. I thought that was the idea. And I went to work for a small media company called Ukie Media, who surely none of you have heard of Ukie Media in Brighton, that lived below. Does anyone watch sports videos, sports DVDs? Lace International? No? Okay. I worked below them. I'm not even for them, just in the same building as them. That was the nearest we got to widespread recognition. Of course, CA was growing. There were 3 projects to support success of Total War. Growth creeps up on you. You don't quite realise when you've hired lots and lots of people that you actually have hired lots and lots of people, because you just think, oh, there's just all my mates downstairs working on the game. I like working for small companies. I like to be a big wheel, important, contributing, not a small cog. There's the adventure of being in a small company, of seeing lots of people around you and knowing all of what they're doing, of making a visible contribution. Being able to see, what you've done having a direct impact on everybody else's work. There's that big binding together. Small teams are pretty good for that. And also, frankly, game dev did still have a faint hint of disreputability. There's something wrong with this machine. Do excuse me. There's a faint hint of disreputability about game dev. At least there was in 2000. It's very much full of people who didn't shave and wash and what? It's full of scruffy individuals who are rather single-minded and persistent in their pursuit of their dreams, which I think is a great thing, actually. But I thought, proper job, and I became technical director of Ukie Media. We all used to have hair back then, so this is August 2001, when, now, really what I wanted to point to here, is this a pointer? Yes, it is. Right, that's me. That's my hair. Came down to here. I used to be a hippie. So that's me. August 2001, so just bear this in mind, okay? That's Ross Manton. Ross Manton is now one of our senior producers on the Total War franchise. Melvin left a few years later. That's Scott Pitt-Kethley. He now runs our battle team. That's Lee Cowan. He is also on Scott's battle team. That's Tim Ansell. He used to own Creative Assembly. More of him later. Jerome Grasdyke. He was the lead of the Total War 2 code-based and development effort. Lucy Black. She was meant to be here today. She's unwell. She's at Media Molecule now and is a stunning producer and a very efficient woman, and was surprisingly underweight when this photo was taken because we were at the end of Crunch. During Crunch, normally people get bigger and eat. Lucy, on the other hand, just walked around. That's Al Hope, Alien Isolation's creative lead, Clive Grattan, Alien Isolation's technical lead, and Jude Bond, Alien Isolation's art lead. Okay? So that's 2001. I couldn't stay away. I really couldn't. Technical director of a media company just wasn't for me. Maybe it was too early. Maybe there wasn't enough interesting coding challenges. There could be any number of reasons, but no, gaming never really left me. I've always been a game developer. I started writing games in 1980 at school, at lunchtimes, sneaking into the maths faculty office where they had an Acorn Atom that they didn't know what to do with, and taking the manual out of the drawer and reading the manual, which I think nobody else in the school had done. That gave me an immediate advantage, reading the manual. Also, CA is a really nice place to work. And it doesn't take a lot of convincing. That photo I showed you, August 2001, that was, a big chunk of our staff, most of whom are still with us. The only reason Tim's not with us is because he sold the company. Lucy's not with us because she just wanted additional production challenges. We have great retention. I'm really proud of that. And the friends I made there remain my friends. Whilst I was away, they were still, I went to some weddings, went to parties, still with the Creative Assembly bunch. Whilst I was doing, oh, great. My God, it's full of stars. Do bear with me. 2001's been remastered, by the way, and I encourage you all to go and see it at the cinema at the end of November. You're all too young to have seen it at the cinema, I'm sure, but it is probably the greatest cinematic experience you'll have this decade. Just saying. A free keynote update is available. Oh, I don't care. Where's my presentation? Da-da-da. Right. Right. The road to Rome. You see, I had to go back. Rome wasn't quite finished when I returned. And my main role was chief bug hunter, code flosser, general fixer, because, most of the program was done, and I just needed the last few bugs ironing out and making better. However, 21 months elapsed between my return and the release of the game. 21 months, okay? So that wasn't actually a nearly finished game. Everybody there believed it was. But it wasn't. 21 months elapsed between my return and the release of the game. And we spent those 21 months working very hard. I can talk about crunch a bit later, but we're a little pressed for time. But the thing was, it was a bigger project, bigger scope, bigger team. Rugby World Cup had 10 programmers, 3 artists. 3 artists. Rome Total War had 14 programmers, 11 artists, 5 designers. It's just more to do, more people to think about. Designers were actually a late addition. After about 3 months, Tim Ansell, the owner, summoned me to his office, and he said to me, right, how are we going to fix this game then? Because he could see that it still needs some work. And I said, well, we need some designers, we need some design input. Because at that time, the game was being designed by the programmers. We had a briefing document, which was a side of A4, said, make it like Shogun, only better, with some interesting bits in it. That was the executive summary. I said design input. So 21 months later, we released it. Now, the reason why that's up there is because people just stopped taking photos. We were so busy and so head down, we didn't notice the passage of time. We didn't think about recording the growth of the company, the faces that came and went. The reason why I've put that one up, besides us all being friends, is because Rome was released on the 10th anniversary of the broadcast of the first episode of Friends, September the 22nd, 2004. We've just celebrated our 20th anniversary. And all of you here, I suspect, didn't actually watch the first episode of Friends being broadcast, with maybe 1 or 2 exceptions. But when I discovered that fact, I felt horrendously old, posted it to Facebook, and had a long stream of people saying, fuck. In response to that comment, in utter disbelief, thinking we're still never more than about 2 hours away from an episode of Friends. But, 22nd September 2004. Still, on we go. Tired, overweight, frazzled by such a long crunch, just baked. I had a third buttock. I've been eating so much junk food. Ross, our producer, was going to Tesco to get salads because he was concerned we were all going to just drop dead. We had patches and old school DLC to make. We didn't call it DLC then. We had expansions. You didn't download. Back in 2004, nobody had internet, for God's sake. You might have had dial-up and you might have had a broadband if you lived in, Hampstead or something like that. But, DLC was just a ridiculous idea. So you'd release patches and you'd put them in a box on a CD and people would go to the shop and they'd buy the CD and then they'd put the CD into their machine and then they'd install it and then it would run and everything would be brilliant. Not like now. On the other side of the building, the console team came up with Spartan, Total Warrior. This was a console game. Anyone play Spartan Total Warrior? Woohoo! I'll tell Clive. Again, a much underrated game, I thought, but it made use of our lots of people running around like mad bastards technology. Also Medieval 2. We didn't actually make Medieval 2. That got farmed out to the people who did the graphics engine, which was for Rome. Because there were just not enough of us, we had a separate team from Australia who did a lot of our graphics for Rome. And we gave them the code base and said, look, you do Medieval 2 whilst we're doing Barbarian Invasion and Alexander. And yeah, pause for breath, that was the thing. We had lots to fix, not only in the code base but in ourselves. Our families and our relationships had taken a really severe pounding. And it was time to get on, time to put things right. So there were big changes in 2005, the year after the release. First of all, Sega bought us in March. Tim sold up to Sega. Good idea. He thought, all this next-gen development, PS2s and it's PS3s and Xbox 360. He thought it's just getting too expensive. Can't do this. Going to hand over to Sega. Good idea, I thought. In September, we released Barbarian Invasion. In October, we released Spartan. And we needed to regroup, do some research, and not submit ourselves to such a punishing crunch. So we started working on design for the next code base. And we introduced division by game area and by tech. And we started to write tools. Well, I started to write tools. And the idea of having a team going tick-tock didn't really mean anything anymore, so we just piled in there and went straight into TW3. Of course, after Sega had bought us, we started a period of rapid expansion, because the first thing they did was throw money and people at us. So our first division of effort was between battle, campaign, and tools. Right, Total War, for those of you who haven't played Total War, it's like Risk, because obviously everyone's played Risk, haven't they? It's a board game. You go around Europe or whatever the theatre of operations are, and you try and take bits of territory. And when you have conflicts over bits of territory, rather than throwing dice to see who gets the territory, you actually go down to a battle map. It's a real-time battle map. You fight a battle in real time. So we've got two games, effectively. We've got the campaign map, which provides the context for the battles on the battle map. So we had two games, campaign, battle. And then our third division was tools. So battle, campaign, tools. That was how we divide our efforts. Resources were, as is traditional, diverted away from tools. The lead programmer focused on graphics. And we thought, do you know what? Naval battles. Let's add naval battles as well, just for the fun of it. And yes, that was madness, taking on a third type of game. Because we wanted to release the next Total War game in rather less time than we wanted to release the Rome game, but with rather more in it, and just throw more people at the problem. Not always an effective strategy. Our luxurious and spacious accommodation shrunk as we hired more people. We were now supporting two full teams, the console team and the Total War team. I actually backed onto the meeting room, which got really noisy when people got really excited and shouty, and we were clearly running out of room. 5 minutes? Oh, I've still got a long way to go. All right. Okay, so we've got another building. So the company split into a new building. We had an 8-minute commute between the two, Total War in Horsham and the console activity in the original building in Southwater. Being in Horsham was great. We had things to do at lunchtime now rather than just being in the middle of nowhere. Southwater is a tiny village. Tiny village. By 2008, though, we were all back in one floor of a building just a little bit further into Horsham. Lovely. It was futuristic. Lights came on automatically when you entered the room. It was the height of modernism. We had air conditioning. We had little projectors that would project onto the walls. We had room to breathe and spread out. We had breakout points, meeting rooms. The future was here. Fantastic. We're still growing. We were still growing then. So Viking, the next console project, that was cracking. Released in March 2008. Who's played Viking? Okay, lovely. Slicing people in two is probably the best bit of Viking. There's some great animations where you separate body from legs. Massed hordes of warriors. Empire took longer than expected. No shit. It was another long slog. I think it was getting on for 4 years of development. Getting to where we left Rome took 18 months. Refactoring probably would have been a better approach, frankly. We got more teams. We got a UI team. The graphics developer, the graphics lead took on, also the lead programmer took on more people, and we got a graphics lead for a graphics team. So we had service teams. We had a UI team, graphics team, which did service stuff. We had the battle team and the campaign team, which actually made the game. And suddenly we were really quite large. We had 40 coders, including help from the console team. We had 33 artists and animators, 17 designers. We had a whole sound team with producers QI and IT, QA, not QI, QA and IT. There was well over 100 of us. When I joined, there were 28. I learned all their names in about a week. And now, or even by then, I was starting to lose sight of, all the other people. Empire was released in March 2009. Anyone played Empire? It won a BAFTA. It won a fucking BAFTA. Go and play Empire, all right? Napoleon was scheduled for 2010. So March 2009, Empire. 2010, Napoleon. Okay? More teams. Sound, multiplayer, tools. I actually started getting people... all this time, I was writing tools on my own, trying to support everyone with tools. Suddenly I got more people writing tools. Fantastic. Designers led the credits. That was an innovation. Up until then, it had been the programmers leading the credits. Suddenly designers were leading the credits. Shogun was released in 2011. Fall of the Samurai was released in 2012. What should we do after Fall of the Samurai? So, yeah, the team's starting to get a bit large now. This is the day that we announced Rome 2, a little red bannery thing up there. That's most of the Rome dev team on the day we announced. Now we're running at full speed. So Rome was our first thematic sequel. We never did a Medieval. Medieval 1 was done by the original Shogun team. Medieval 2 was done by the Australian team. Freighted with history, clearly. 25 of the original team of Rome are still here. And the team keeps on growing. We've got 39 programmers, including our first female programmer, Gwennifer Raymond. She's a physics doctorate in general relativity. And she's brilliant. Excellent company. We've got 51 artists, 22 designers. We've got 5 people on sound. We have an in-house marketing and communications team, which is fantastic. If I could do it all again, this is a little indulgent. I wasn't actually in charge. So I can look back and say, shouldn't have done that. But what I would do is I would introduce tools earlier. We have a tool called Bob, Build on One Button. Bob. The idea of Bob is that you take all the code, you take all the raw resources, you press a button, go away, have your lunch, dinner, go to bed, whatever, and when you come back, there's the game, completely built, ready to be uploaded to Steam or cut to a DVD or whatever, but it's one button. We automate as much of the process as possible. Any automation you can introduce, if you find yourself doing repetitive things, stop. Don't be an idiot. That's how errors get introduced. You've got an automatic process, make it automatic, get a machine to do it. Very simple. Okay? Virtualize. So we've lost Rome. We have the code. We have a version of the code. We've got the resources, but we can't build it again. We don't know how. We've forgotten. We've actually forgotten how to make Rome. We ended up getting another company in to help us work out what it was that we were doing and how we managed to get it to work. When you finish a game, make sure you know how to do it, and then... Does anybody here do any virtualization, by the way, about virtual machines, where you create... Oh, I'm going to shut up. Virtualize. Look it up. Look up virtualizing, virtualize your development environment, put it in cold storage, and get it out again when you need it. When we got bought by Sega, they wanted to replace all the Activision logos in Rome. We couldn't. Sorry. Eat well and exercise. Yeah, eat well and exercise. I can't... It's really important. Eat less junk. It's tough to shift. It really is. It's a sedentary job. You really have got to watch your health. You know, I've got friends who have died in the games industry, probably because they just didn't take proper care of themselves. I'm sorry to end on a downer, but I'd like you to eat well, I'd like you to eat less junk, and be healthy, and make games for years and years and years to come. Thank you.
The good news is you can ask a couple of questions because the other session is actually running behind time. So
hey!
Is there a question anyone would like to ask?
Yes.
You see, so thank you very much, by the way, for the story. It
That's right.
Said, like,
Happy to tell it.
From the 20 person to a small team to actually like massive.
There's 350 of us now.
I want to
Yes.
ask, you know, like, since you saw it from the perspective of actually growing the team, did it actually change even like from something like a flat hierarchical, you know, like small dev team into something more like corporate? Is it changed like over the years?
Corporate, that's a strange word, and I don't really know what it means. I can't... Okay, it changed. A hierarchy was introduced, lines of reporting were introduced, responsibility had to be devolved, delegation had to take place. When I joined, Tim Mansell was the boss, and he said, Guy, can you write this code, please? And I'd say, yes, I will, thank you. And that's what I go and do. We can't do that now because the projects are too big, they're too involved, they're too complicated. You have to delegate down. Now, words like up and down immediately give this kind of master-servant power relationship thing, and it gets horrible. And we think, well, yeah, but it doesn't really work like that. Well, how do we describe it? Oh, I don't know. How about we just don't worry about it? Yeah, that's great. Let's not worry about it. Let's just delegate and get it. So I think actually that's the better, healthier way to do things rather than focusing on, oh, who do I report to? Are they an idiot? Just, you know, find somebody else to do the work if there's too much of it for you, and just treat it like that.
I'm all one.
Oh, yeah.